Over my years of deck building, I've been chasing one singular thing. While building a deck that uses synergy to play into a high power level is cool, it never felt like enough. The pattern of using +1/+1 counters or building a kindred deck became extremely boring and repetitive. I needed more, a different challenge. This developed into finding more unique synergies or underrated cards and using them in powerful ways to make the table go, wait, that does what? About a card they've never seen before being used in a powerful way. However, these jank cards often require a lot of support to get to the point of being strong. A great example of this is Grandeur Dungeon Warden. Using his ability to repeatedly cheat out threats and combo pieces onto the battlefield is really strong. And lesser-known cards like Thran Turbine and Telgelad Stylus help to loop powerful enters effects in a unique way. While this may seem powerful when it finally gets going, it needs quite a few pieces in play. Grandeur needs to be on the battlefield with enough counters, and you need to have ways of putting creatures on the bottom of your library. The mana producers to repeatedly activate Grenzo's ability must be there as well. After putting all of these things together, by at earliest turn 4 or 5, it will do the exact same thing that an Entomb into Reanimate would do on turn 2. A deck that can utilize many pieces of jank in a unique yet powerful way is the single thing that I've been chasing as a deck builder. Now, I love jank in Commander, but what I just described is a real drawback that many people, myself included, face when trying to build a deck around something with little support. Many mechanics in Magic are simply forgotten about or don't have enough printings yet to make it a viable strategy in any serious Commander pod. So you'll probably think I'm crazy when I say I built a deck around a mechanic that has literally zero support in Commander. Over the course of this video, I will take you on a journey. The journey of how a single mechanic and a small idea turned into a Commander deck that should never have existed. To begin this journey, we'll go back, all the way to 2007, when a new and exciting Magic set just came out, Future Sight. Future Sight marked a time in Magic's history that was defined by innovation in game design, expanding upon well-known mechanics such as buyback, shroud, bloodthirst, and more, as well as lesser-known mechanics like aura swap, gravestorm, and grandeur, the last of which would provide the inspiration for this very deck. Grandeur is a mechanic that is similar to cycling or a discard outlet, where it allows you to discard a card from your hand with the same name as the one on the battlefield and gain a powerful effect, locking opponents out of turns, ramping multiple swamps to the field, or bouncing one of each card type an opponent controls to their hand. This mechanic was clearly intended for a format like Standard, a non-singleton format where players could take advantage of running multiple copies of these cards without being punished for the one already in play. However, as time went on, we left 2007 Magic behind. Commander began to gain more and more popularity as Wizards of the Coast began printing sets with a singleton format in mind. For this reason, and many others I'm sure, the mechanic of Grandeur would fade into obscurity, only to act as a relic of a different stage in Magic the Gathering's life. It's mechanics like this, ones that shouldn't work on any level in Commander, that truly capture my interest. When brainstorming the initial construction of this deck, I ran into the first decision of many that would shape what this deck would come to be. Which of the 5 Grandeur creatures would I use? There was one for each color, and going from top left to bottom right, I'll give a quick overview of what value each of these cards provides. Orus silences a player for a turn and stops them from attacking. Linessa bounces a creature, land, enchantment, and artifact chosen by the targeted player. Korlash ramps in a powerful way by finding any lands with the swamp type, similar to a Nature's Lore or Farseek in black. Terex gives a temporary buff by doubling its own power, and Baru creates a token with power and toughness equal to the number of lands we control. Out of all of these, I ultimately decided on using only Orus, Korlash, and Linessa. Terex honestly didn't interest me in the slightest. While the buff can be impressive in a Standard format, it's wholly unimpressive in Commander, and while Baru has a powerful ability, it was the least dynamic compared to the others, only creating a big token with no evasion. And for the sake of keeping an already complex deck as simple as possible, I decided that a maximum of 3 colors would be an important restriction. So after Future Sight was released and Commander began its rise in popularity, I began playing. And here I was, an aspiring deck builder exploring the format, a mechanic that has no business working in Commander, and 3 creatures in 3 colors that I needed to make function at a level that could actually hang with other decks in a powerful pod. Now, after looking at the Grandeur mechanic for any amount of time, I'm sure you all came to the same conclusion that I did about how to make this mechanic work in a singleton format. It would have to be clones. Clones would allow the deck to essentially run any number of each Grandeur creature and allow that ability to actually be used at all. So the base idea for the deck was formed. I won't bore you with the entire process, but eventually it came together. And here's the first iteration. First, I'll break down the main ideas behind the deck and how it actually functions. And if you want to look further into it, I will have the lists in the description below. The deck runs 12 clones and 10 regrowth or recur effects. We utilize these cards for the following effects. Assuming you have a recur effect on the battlefield like Phyrexian Reclamation, a Grandeur card in hand, and a clone card in hand, you can cast the Grandeur creature, then cast the clone. Because all of the Grandeur creatures are legendary, we will put the original copy into the graveyard. This leaves a clone of our Grandeur creature on the field. From here, we can use Phyrexian Reclamation to put the Grandeur creature card to hand. Now, we can repeat the process by discarding the original Grandeur creature by activating the Grandeur ability of the clone on the battlefield. Quickly, this can set up an engine of repeating value from these very specific creature abilities. However, setting all of this up required a lot of pieces, and ensuring you have all of them at any given point in the game is incredibly difficult. Running over 10 tutors and opting for a partner pairing commander that both focus on recursion does help. But ultimately, the deck felt super sluggish and inconsistent. The mana cost of the game plan was high, requiring you to hardcast the Grandeur creature only to kill it to the Legend Whirl after casting a clone. Then you'd have to use even more mana to deploy and activate the recursion effects. While the deck functioned and took advantage of the unique Grandeur mechanic, which was the goal of the whole deck, it wasn't strong enough for me to play in any serious Commander pod, and ultimately fell short of my expectations. The main reason for this consists of the following 3 issues. The first, and previously mentioned, was the high mana cost of establishing the game plan. The second was the specificity of cards required for the deck to function. While running high numbers of clones and recursion helps sometimes, you end up with a hand full of clones and no recursion and no tutors for the Grandeur creatures. This often caused me to mulligan down all the way to 5 or 4 cards, which isn't a place you want to be when you already feel like you're playing from behind with a mechanic that shouldn't even work in Commander. The third and last reason is similar to the second, but it has to do with the amount of slots required. 12 clones, 10 recursion pieces, 10 tutors, and anything else that felt nice for the deck pushed the core categories of ramp, removal, protection, and draw to the outer edges, causing us to run only a few staples. This gave the deck an inconsistent feel, and in January of 2024, this deck, built around such a captivating mechanic, was shelved, left to rot as a concept demonstration in my Mox field. Though this deck and mechanic would always sit in the back of my mind, I moved on, and was able to create other fun and powerful decks. While I have many decks that I enjoy, some that I play at almost every single Commander night, nothing scratched the itch or felt as original as my Grandeur deck. Though I never had it in paper, I dreamed of a day when there would be enough support for this idea to function. But until then, I would wait and all but forget about this amazingly unique deck idea. As we get more and more sets each year that feel like they're designed exactly for Commander, I often find myself thinking back to a quote from one of my favorite deck builders. It was 33 Elk who said, "Ask yourself, when new cards come out, not what deck they would slot into, but what decks that were once impossible do these cards now make possible?" And suddenly, in February of 2025, that very thing happened. With the launch of Aether Drift, we received one of the most powerful and unique commanders ever printed, Hashaton Scarab's First, which was a new commander that many people quickly took a liking to. While CEDH and discard-focused lists emerged with the many combos this card enabled and ways to cheat out powerful creatures, I sat back and thought, not what this card makes powerful, but what does this card make possible? And then it hit me. This is the exact piece that was missing for my Grandeur deck, and it couldn't have happened more perfectly that this commander was already in Esper. I could take my original thought and adapt it to this amazing new commander. So what does Hashiton offer that we didn't have before? Well, first, being only 2 mana, he was easier to play than the previous 3 mana and 5 mana partner pairing. Additionally, Hashiton's ability of 2 generic and 1 blue mana is an above average rate for a clone, and it provided an insane level of consistency by having a low cost option always available in the command zone. But the most important aspect of it was that we no longer needed to spend the mana to hard cast the Grandeur creatures. Rather than spending the 3 or 4 mana to hard cast this creature, then an additional 3 or 4 mana to clone it, we could simply discard it on turn 3 or 4 to a discard outlet, like many of the ones that are included in the new deck list. The ability that Hashiton provided allowed us to cut almost every single clone in the deck, opening slots to make the deck more efficient. Additionally, with him caring about discard, it gave us the perfect theme to build around and one that already has an insane amount of support in Esper. Discarding. A complete overhaul of the deck resulted in brand new slots opening, which allowed us to run stronger and more synergistic staples. As an example, rather than running a card like Knight's Whisper or Sign in Blood, we can run Ledger Shredder, which allows us to dig through our deck for pieces that we need while also giving us a way to discard our Grandeur creatures and clone them with Hashiton. Combining all of the elements Hashiton provided and over a year of developing my own deck building skills and being able to build a much better deck at this point, finally my favorite commander deck came together. So here you have it, the Grandeur deck 2.0. The full list will be in the description, but I will very quickly highlight some of my favorite parts of this deck. Of course, this will be quick because I could legitimately talk about every card in this deck and the level of depth it provides for hours. The plan for the deck remains similar. Find an opening hand that has the following: a Grandeur creature, a way to discard that creature, and recursion to get it back to hand, which sets up our engine. Alternatively, any or all of these slots could be replaced by the vast selection of tutors, which can each be used to eventually get the card you need. Getting these cards in hand is also done consistently through a powerful draw suite tied to mechanics like Connive or other looting cards like Ledger Shredder and Frantic Search. This allows them to act as a discard outlet while still providing draw, giving us value on 2 fronts. Discarding is also tied to cards outside of our draw package, such as our removal spells with Bitter Triumph and Lethal Scheme. The all-star recursion pieces consist of Tortured Existence and Phyrexian Reclamation. Tortured Existence is especially amazing because it allows us to discard a creature and recur a creature all on 1 card for a total of 2 mana, 1 to play and 1 to activate. The last 2 mechanics I would like to mention are the suite of Transmute cards, providing value while also acting as backup tutors and being able to be copied by Hashiton as a last resort. And the few Wizard Cyclers I include in the deck, which help find Linessa, the Grandeur creature with a wizard type. Like I've said, there are numerous deep cuts and plans within plans in this deck that would need and probably will get their own video to highlight. At the end of the day, all of this is to achieve the goal of not only utilizing, but using the Grandeur creatures as the main build-around and engines that propel us through the late game. In the very end, it comes down to this simple idea. Corlash ramps us, being looped to find swamps over and over. Horus locks our opponents down, while Inessa bounces any threats and value they can accrue. In the end, we drain them out with a Faith of the Devoted or Monument to Endurance to win the game. I was finally able to get this list fully ready to go in paper, and it has performed better than I could have thought. It has won a majority of the games it's played and by far outdone my expectations. But there are always ways to improve, and cracking the deck list open on Mox to record this video has me already looking at areas to upgrade. The list has not been edited since the recent unbanning of Gifts Ungiven, and in Esper colors, with access to cards like Savine's Reclamation, there could be some pretty powerful Intuition and Gifts Ungiven piles. The previously mentioned cards also work great with this, and a new card that I haven't mentioned, Likeness Looter, which offers a free discard by tapping, but also has the ability to clone things in the yard. Grabbing this, a recursion piece, and a Grandeur creature with the Intuition almost guarantees that you set up the engine. Please leave any of your suggestions in the comments below, as I would love to hear them. Let me know if you want a full video that is more dedicated to reviewing each section of the deck and more like a deck tech, as I would be more than happy to do that. I hope that this video inspires you to do something incredibly unique in deck building. I made sure to include small examples of some fun and unique cards that might be considered jank on slides earlier in the video. So if you go through and watch again, maybe you'll find some inspiration in those. I often find myself looking at my many deck lists and seeing the reflection of other Magic influencers and deck builders like 3/3 Elk, Trinket Mage, Snail, Deck Driver, and many others. But when I look at this deck, all I see is my own idea of a unique deck functioning in an amazing way. This deck will always hold a special place in my heart, so thank you for letting me share it with all of you today. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe as it helps the channel out the most. If you want to watch more of our content, click on the video here, and as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.